Well, good morning, everyone. I think the mic is working. I'm seeing the little bars go. I am Dr. Josh, Digital Hammurabi, and today we are going to be looking at Hebrew grammar. Now, I know that many of you have been waiting for this, and we did, I think, 3 lessons already. And let me just adjust this thing. Good. So we've done 3 lessons already. We did the alphabet, we did the vowels, we did some other little things. But now we're ready just about to get into the grammar. So we're going to do a couple of small things today, uh, and then we're going to get into nouns and verbs and all the fun stuff. So if you look in the description below, you'll see, or the description of this video, you will see the whatchamacallit, the link to the playlist that has whatever. Sorry, the I'm trying to get the mirroring up for my iPad. But it's the playlist for the first 3 lessons. You can click that and go back through if you want to learn the alphabet. I think we also have the alphabet song in there, so it's a lot of fun. If you liked my rap, you'll like my alphabet song. Probably not, but anyway, it's what I learned. It's what I used when I learned the Hebrew alphabet. So there we are. Before we get going, I want to talk just for a second about some of the resources. Excuse me. Some of the resources that we'll be using here, we'll be referring to, and that you at home should probably, if you're going to study Hebrew, probably get something, either these or something similar. So the first thing is the main grammar that we use, or that I'll be using. This is the one that I taught from when I taught at seminary. This is Alan Ross's Introducing Biblical Hebrew. Fantastic work. I'm not going to be going through it, strictly. I'm going to use it as a guide. So you'll see that the general outline of what I teach is going to use that, but it's not going to do it, as a mirror. However, the way that I'll be teaching this, using Alan Ross's book for the exercises and for the vocabulary, that's what we'll be basing our. We've got a flashcard program. I think Megan has a flashcard program that she's been updating, but that's what she's going to base it on. So I would highly recommend that you go out and purchase a copy of this. Not that expensive, and we can probably get somebody, one of our mods, to put the link to the Amazon, put the Amazon link to the book in there. But Alan Ross's Introducing Biblical Hebrew. But some of the other reference grammar, one of the other reference grammars that I'll use, we try to stay away from. Jonah Epstein points out that I missed the N when I typed "Learn to Read Hebrew" playlist. Sorry about that. But the other grammar that I use, and this is the one that I used when I learned Hebrew, was Seow's a grammar for biblical Hebrew, and this is a phenomenal work. It's a little harder to use for the beginner, at least on one's own, but it's a great teaching grammar. But it's it's a good book to use and reference. Okay, so for the actual Hebrew Bible, right, if you're going to get yourself a Hebrew text, the main text that people use is Biblia Hebraica Stuttgartensia. This is the smaller version of it, the paperback, and you can see, like, from the size of my hand, it's it's not a terribly big book, but it has the. It has the letter, it has the text up here, and then the apparatus down here, so it shows all the variants. But this is a good one. It gets a little bit cheaper. Obviously, there are obviously electronic references or tools that you can use as well. If you're like me and your eyesight stinks, which it does, I got the bigger version. I'll show you the difference. This is. If I can grab this with one hand, you can see the difference between the sizes of these books. And of course, the print is bigger and it's easier to use. But again, same thing. If you open it up, you'll see that you have the text on top, the biblical text on top, and then the apparatus on the bottom that shows the variant. So same text, but it's just easier to read. And then finally, if you don't use like electronic um, resources, and you want something in print, which I I have found when I teach this that a lot of people like to have, particularly when they're learning, like physical copies. This is, it's a little, it's older, but it's still extraordinarily good. I'm trying to get away from the glare there. This is what you'll hear people affectionately call BDB, Brown Driver and Briggs, Hebrew and Aramaic lexicon. It's called the actual Hebrew and English lexicon, but it has the Hebrew and the Aramaic. But this is a fantastic resource. It, it takes a little bit to learn how to use it, and maybe we'll do a video where we talk about it. But it's just a straight lexicon. But it gives the references. It'll give the uses, occurrences of a lot of the words. Anyway, so that's sort of your dictionary. So as you go through, you want to have your grammar there for learning and for understanding how the the sentences go together, the words go together, how to parse different verbs, that sort of thing. But then you want to have a dictionary so you can look up what those words or those lexemes are. Okay, I'm gonna drink a coffee. This is an interesting mug. I know I did this already, but it's a Skylar Fiction mug. Look at that. Megan designed it. So the Skylar Fiction Show, where apologetics comes to die. He's very clever. But yes, you can get that now on, if you go to any of Skylar's more recent videos. He's got a Streamlabs store that we set up for him, which is great because we have, he could have set it up, but we have the Streamlabs program. He has a Mac, so we got a Windows computer. That's why we did it. Anyway. All right, so I was going to try to get a whiteboard, but it turns out that might be, because that's what I used to teach on. We are going to do this instead. Hopefully you guys can see that okay. I'm going to adjust my mic a little bit so I can get a little closer. I haven't done this before with this kind of microphone in my way, so hopefully this will work out. Hopefully you guys will have patience. Let me just make sure this works. Yes, it does. Beautiful. Okay. So, in the first couple of lessons, and by the way, as we go through this, if you do have questions, Megan is there in the side chat, as you can see, and she would be very happy to field those questions and pass them on to me. I don't know how it'll work in later episodes. I think what we're going to do is actually have Zoom up and that phone number so you can call in and ask your questions via phone. But I thought Megan actually suggested that it might be a little too stressful for a first run. So starting the next episode, we'll do that. If you have questions, please jot them down. I suspect a lot of the questions will be answered as we go through the lesson, but if not, by the end, if we didn't answer them, Megan will say, or I'll say it's a good time to ask your questions, and then we'll go through them at the end. Excuse me. So, at any rate, let's go ahead and get started. So, if we we learned the alphabet in the earlier lessons. We learned the vowels. So if you don't know those, please go back and review those. So I'm assuming as I teach this lesson that you know the consonants and the vowels and the basics of syllable breakup. So yeah, we will get in now to accents. So this is an important aspect. Let's see if I can do this. Yeah, I think I probably can. Let me tilt this up. No, that's not going to work. Okay, so let's talk about accents. By the way, I hope everybody can see that okay. My handwriting is atrocious, and I apologize for that. We were going to do, like we did with Sumerian, at least the later Sumerian lessons, very produced, well-produced, whatever, not live with me rambling and saying, oh, that sort of thing in them for the Hebrew lessons. But the way that Hebrew is structured and the way that I'm going to have to go over it, I think that we'll be able to cover the material maybe better and faster. It'll take me a lot longer to produce the videos if I have to do them more strategically. So yeah, hopefully this will work. This is going to be more like a classroom setting. This is how I would teach it in a classroom. So, okay, we learned in the earlier lessons that there are two types of syllables. So I'll just go over that very quickly. There are consonant vowel syllables. So if I divide this here, this is a consonant, this is a vowel, right? So consonant vowel. And then you have consonant vowel consonant. So this is a consonant, this is a vowel, this is a consonant. This is the word davar. It means word or thing or matter. Okay, so there are two types of syllables, consonant vowel and consonant vowel consonant. One of the things that you need to remember as we go through this is that if you have a consonant vowel consonant, well, that's all I'll say about that for now. I'll come back to it in just a second. So he's going to talk, looking at Ross's grammar here, he talks about, how do I reset this whole page? There's a way to do that. I don't know how to do that. So I'm just going to use maybe my eraser. I think there's a way to do this where I can erase. That's okay. Okay, there we go. Switch back. Okay. So each Hebrew word will have an accent. So let's go back to our word davar. Normally, the reason I talk about syllables is because, each Hebrew word is divided up into syllables. And generally speaking, hey, Banana Junior 11. So this is going to be a little intimidating. I have actual Hebrew speakers in the chat. So yeah, as a kif. Hopefully it will be fun. I think that's what kif means. Anyway, so generally speaking, the accent will fall. This is how oftentimes I'll write an accent mark. The accent will fall on the last syllable of a word. So davar, ivrit. So you can hear that in my voice. The accent where the stress falls on a syllable in a word is usually on the final syllable. However, that's not always the case. So let's think. There has got to be a way. There it is. Aha, figured it out. There is a way. There are words like eretz, the word for earth or land, that the accent falls on not the last syllable, right? Not the final syllable. So in those cases, we will mark the accent. We'll either mark it with a caret, whatever that is, side caret, I don't know what that's called, or just a little dash like that. But that marks the accent. Okay, the accent is important because it'll tell you certain things about Hebrew vowels. So let's look at this word. Go back to our word davar. And this is interesting because I can't clearly see my screen. So hopefully I don't write weird things. Davar means word, like a single word. The way you make a word a plural often is to add the ending im. This thing right here. This ending im. And you don't have to memorize that right now. I'm just trying to show you something here. So when you change the word davar to the word and you make it a plural, the plural is devarim. Devarim. So here's the difference. Davar, two long A vowels, davar. And then devarim is, you can hear that first syllable, davar, goes down to devarim. So it's like it shortens. Let's think of the word history. History. We don't normally pronounce that O. History. We say history. History. So it's often pronounced like this. History. Because that vowel, it shortens. And actually, he gives an example here in the text in his book. Nation. There you go. Nation is a good word that we can use. So, nation. Is that the word? Well, yeah, okay, that's fine. So nation, that long A sound, when you write this word, that A, nation, goes to national, right? It shortens, or it becomes a shorter vowel. National. So there's a change in the vowel sound when you add things to a word. Okay. So going back to our example, davar for word, the accent is here, but when you put an ending on, remember, the accent normally falls on the final syllable. So this accent shifts to this final syllable. What that does is it makes you kind of hurry up. It makes you kind of rush over the first syllables, the earlier syllables. So what happens in this word is that long A vowel in davar gets reduced, that's what they call it, reduced to a shava or a shawa. And so you no longer say davar, you say dvarim. So this sound becomes a short sound, like a reduced sound is what they call it. Okay, so that's important to know because you're going to see as we move forward that the spellings of words and the ways that they're pronounced can get really confusing if you don't know at least some of the basic rules as to why those vowels are changing. So this is one of the most common ones. It's why he wants to talk about it. Every Hebrew word is going to have an accent. And sometimes those accents will cause other vowels to change how they look and how they sound. Okay, so normally, so if there's something you want to take away from this, the big thing that you want to take away from this is that in the word, in the word davar, in the word davar, the accent is on the final syllable. That's how most Hebrew words are. However, in some Hebrew words, so if it is on the final syllable, we're not going to write that accent at the top. It's just going to be understood that it's at the end. However, with some Hebrew words like eretz, which, by the way, if you've heard any discussions on like Genesis 1, you've heard the word eretz and what it means, the land, does it mean all the land, all that stuff. So now as you take this class, you'll know how it's actually pronounced. It's not eretz, because that's how it looks in English. It's eretz. And you will notice that when people write it, they will often put a little accent mark over the initial syllable, the first syllable there, because that's different than most other Hebrew words. Most Hebrew words, the accent falls on the last syllable. If it falls on another syllable, they're going to put an accent. So, by the way, just from a terminological standpoint, the accented syllable that has the accent, is called the tone or the tonic syllable. Let's go back to our word. Our word for words, devarim. So if you think about how that's divided, devarim, this is the final syllable, and so it's the tonic syllable. This syllable is the syllable that comes before the tonic syllable, so they call it the pre-tonic syllable. You're probably thinking, why on earth do I need to know that? It'll be good to know in a little bit. The one that is 2 syllables before the tonic syllable is the pro-pretonic. So the tonic, the pre-tonic, tonic, pre-tonic, and the pre-tonic syllables. Okay. Also, this is called the ultimate syllable. This is called the penultimate syllable. So ultimate syllable is the one at the end. Penultimate. And this is called the antepenultimate penultimate. I may use those. That I learned Hebrew with those words. So you may say, well, if there's a comma, it's in the antepenultimate syllable or in the propertonic syllable. Yeah. Anyway, so it's kind of good to at least be familiar with those words. Okay. We talked about syllables. Accents enough. You will see in the Hebrew text that there are little marks in the text like that, or edits. Instead of writing a little caret up at the top like that, the Hebrew text won't do that. You might see a little mark like that. Actually, I should probably put those in different colors. At least I'll do this. These marks right here, those are accent marks. They're under the syllable that marks where the accent is in the word. So I don't know exactly how to pull up a Hebrew text right now. You'll see those going forward. Anyway, so you'll see these little marks. Sometimes there are little dots up here like this. Sometimes there's a mark like that, or like a line, a straight line down. Anyway, those are accent marks in the Hebrew text. So when you look at, it probably won't work. My camera probably won't focus enough to do this. Maybe it will, but if you look at, I don't know if that's focusing enough, but if you look at the Hebrew text there are little marks. That was probably utterly useless. Sorry, everyone. There are little accent marks so that you don't have to guess oftentimes. Well, you don't have to guess where the accent is. Anyway, right. Sorry, I'm looking at some of the comments here. So, right. Okay. No. Banana Junior is commenting saying that. Yeah. So absolutely the word davar, which we've been talking about, comes from the Hebrew root dalet beit resh, and I think we talked about this in an earlier video, but I'll just talk about it again really quick. Hebrew and other Semitic languages, almost all of their words, the Hebrew words, are based off of 3 consonants. So these 3 consonants, dalet beit resh, have like a general meaning of talking or saying or speaking. So a davar is like a word, right? Something that is spoken. Oops. This is really hard to do. Medaber, speaking, diber, the verb he spoke. So you can see they all have dalet beit resh. Dalet beit resh, dalet beit resh, dalet beit resh in them, and they all have something to do with speaking. They're all words are not necessarily like that, and you want to be careful. But generally speaking, when you see when you see Hebrew words, this is sort of how they go together. They have trilateral roots, is what they're called. So roots that have 3 letters, and you can change the vowel points. You can change some consonants around them to change the meaning, but it generally has the same basic idea of that original 3-letter root. Okay. Yes, absolutely. Banana Junior says yes. In modern Hebrew, it also means thing, and it definitely means thing in biblical Hebrew too. It can mean both. So, yeah, that's a good point. Okay. I don't know if everybody's thoroughly confused or bored, and I'm sorry if you are. Let's try to move on. There are a couple, so talking about accents, there are a couple of accent marks that you need to know about that are important. So let's go back to our word davar. By the end of this lesson, everybody will know that davar means a word or a thing. Um, okay, there's an accent that looks like a straight line, and I drew it earlier, but it comes up, it shows up right next to the vowel. So this is your accent mark right here, this vertical line. This is called metheg, or meteg, depending on how you pronounce that, tav. And the metheg, it's basically like a yellow light, and it tells you to slow down. Let me explain what I mean. The word that he gives as an example is so Adam means man, human, that's humanity, that sort of thing. We'll talk about this in a little bit, but when you put ha in front of a word, it means the most often. So ha-adam is the man. Well, if you remember, the accent is here. It's on the final syllable. That's a really weird looking accent. It's on the final syllable. And in your rush to get to it, you will often pronounce ha-adam, ha-adam, like really quickly. And so they will put this, actually, I'm going to change the color so you can see that. They will put a metheg, this vertical line, next to this vowel here, this comet, long A sound, to essentially tell you slow down. We want you to pronounce the ha sound in full. Ha-adam. Don't go over it really quickly. Ha-adam, like that. So ha-adam. And they want you to do that because they want the word the to come out in speech. So you'll see that sometimes in the text. Now that's important because it tells you that that's a long vowel. And I won't say any more about it than that right now. It's important to know that that's a long vowel instead of a short vowel. It's going to come up in about 10 minutes when I get to it. It'll identify that this is a long A instead of a short O. Okay? But if you have this, I guess maybe one way to think about it, if you have this vowel and you have a long vertical line next to it, that's telling you it's a long vowel. So if you have a long vertical line, it's a long vowel. Okay. So that's called metheg or meteg, however you want to do it. That's this guy right here, metheg. Okay. There's another mark that you need to know when you're reading through the biblical text, and that is makef. So the word eight, man, I really have a... It's hard to write these things using this iPad. So 8 is called a direct object marker. And a direct object marker does just that. It marks Johnny hit the ball. What is it that Johnny hit? The ball. So in Hebrew, they have a word that they put before the ball. So in a sentence, you would say Johnny hit 8 the ball. So that's how you pronounce that. 8. It's an arrow that says the next word is the direct object of the verb. Okay. So, sorry. Let's say hadavar, the word, the thing. So 8 hadavar we don't translate 8. It's left untranslated in English because all it is an arrow that points you that says, "Hey, the next word in this sentence is um, in the sentence. It's the direct object in the sentence, or at least one of them." So, for example, if you think this might be a good example in Genesis 1:1, Bereshit bara Elohim et, and I don't remember exactly how it's written there, if it's et or et, hashamayim. I think that's a short A, actually. Damn it. It's so hard to write. Actually, et hashamayim, the et ha aretz, which is eretz ha aretz. Okay, so et in these positions are basically telling you, in the beginning God created hashamayim and haaretz, the heavens and the earth. Notice that I didn't translate 8 at all. It's all it is. It's an arrow pointing you to what is it that God created? What's the object of created? This word, this thing. So there was the reason that I point that out here, just sort of as a tidbit of information, sort of trivia here. There is a teaching or a theology or something that really focuses in on this word, 8, Aleph Tav. Aleph is the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet. Tav is the last letter. And they believe that this is like a secret writing of God. I think actually of Jesus. I'm not sure. And one of the things that they point out is, look, if you look at a transliteration, where you have it's on the tip of my tongue, interlinear is the word I'm trying to think of. An interlinear text where it has the Hebrew on the top and the English underneath of it, kind of word for word, that they never translate Aleph Tav. Why don't they ever translate it? Well, it's a big conspiracy, right? They're not doing it because then that's Jesus' name, the beginning and the end, the first and the last, Aleph, the Tav. No, they don't translate it because it's just an arrow that points you to, that indicates the direct object. So there's no mystery as to why it's not translated, but now you know that. Okay, so the reason I bring that up, it, in our example, hadavar, oftentimes, because they're so closely connected, they will put this, actually let me put that in red, they will join the two words together, like a compound word. And what happens is this first word, et, loses its accent. The accent essentially, because it becomes ostensibly or like grammatically or in pronunciation, one word, it's joined together. It loses its accent, and the accent just goes all the way at the end. So if you remember me talking about syllables, you have two different types of syllables, consonant vowel and a consonant vowel consonant. So I told you I'd come back to this, so here I am coming back to it. Syllables that are tonic, they have the accent, can be, this is called an open syllable. You can see why, because there's no vowel there closing it. This is called a closed syllable because there is. The vowel is encased, it's closed in. This one, the open syllable, is not closed in, so they call that an open syllable. Open syllables and closed syllables, if they don't have an accent, if there's no accent over the syllable, an open syllable has to have a long vowel. Let me write this out here. Unaccented syllable. All right, if you have an unaccented syllable, one that doesn't have the accent, right? So in our word davar, the accent is here. So we're talking about this syllable right here. Again, if you're shaky on syllables and the vowels or anything else that I'm talking about, first 3 lessons, we talk all about that of this series. So go back and read all about it. But this is the syllable we're talking about right here. That's the unaccented syllable. So it's an open syllable. You can see that, right? Because you have a consonant here and a vowel here. But there's no consonant closing it, right? That's it, consonant, vowel. Then you move on to the next syllable. However, this one is consonant, vowel, consonant. So it's a closed syllable, okay? So you have open syllables and you have closed syllables. All right. Yeah, Banana Jr. points out that writing old Hebrew letters is more annoying than modern ones. Yeah. Let's see if I remember this. So like, goodness, what is Gimel that way? Dalet, hey. Anyway, so this is not sure about the Gimel. I haven't written. Surprisingly, I haven't written modern Hebrew cursive, or I guess it'd be cursive, in a long time. Anyway, that's what he's talking about. It's a lot easier when you remember how to do it. It's a lot easier to write in modern Hebrew sort of cursive style. Okay, so open syllables and closed syllables. If it is unaccented, if the accent is not with that syllable, if it's not over that syllable, open syllables have to have a long vowel. Okay? Open syllables, oops, long vowel. Oh, Banana Jr. says I was right. Cool. I feel good about that. Closed syllables have to have a short vowel. Okay? This is very important. I know it sounds really... Why are you telling me this, Josh? It's important. And if you think about it, it makes sense. If you think about these syllables as having weight, long vowels are heavier because they take longer to pronounce. Ka as opposed to ka, or da, eh. It takes longer, so they weigh more, if you want to think about it that way. So a consonant plus a heavy vowel, that's a weight. That's pretty heavy. But if you had a consonant and a heavy vowel and another consonant, that would just be way too much. If we're trying to balance on a seesaw here or something, if this is a long vowel, not a long vowel, if that's a long vowel, good grief, I can't write, and this is a short vowel, then it all balances out, right? Everything kind of balances out, because the consonant vowel, that long vowel, because it's in an open syllable, that long vowel makes it this heavy. And you would think, okay, well, consonant, vowel, consonant, that's a short vowel in there, but that extra consonant balances it out in weight, right? That's how you can kind of remember it. So if you have an open syllable, consonant, vowel, it has to be a long vowel. If it's consonant, vowel, consonant, a closed syllable, it has to be a short vowel. Okay? Now, all right. If you have an accented syllable, it doesn't matter. Accented syllables can be either one, right? It doesn't matter. So you can just ignore it. Oh, thank you, Steve. Steve, reminding everybody that I will be taking questions at the end. Hopefully not everybody's sleeping. I haven't done this in years, so I apologize. But that's really important to remember as we move forward here. So open syllable, consonant, vowel. Open syllable, long. Closed syllable, short. Open, long, closed, short. That's important to remember. Now let me give you some examples to sort of show that and why it's important. Okay, so edits. That's a good example. So it's divided there. The accent's there, right? So this is an open syllable. See? Consonant, vowel. Right? But it has the accent, so it doesn't matter. It can be either one. It can have a short vowel, long vowel, medium vowel. I don't care. It doesn't matter. If it has the accent, don't worry about it. However, this syllable, change my rets, does not have the accent. Lekalel, is that to curse? When are we going to learn to curse in Hebrew? Is that what that says? Yeah, anyway, sorry. No cursing here. Thank God. I think that's what that says. Hopefully I got that right. I need to not look at the side chat because I'll get distracted. Okay, so here we have an open syllable, but it's accented, so it doesn't matter. Here we have a closed syllable. So a closed syllable that's unaccented, you have to have a short vowel, and we do, right? This is a short E vowel. So so eretz. Okay, now let's look at our other word, davar. It's here. So this is a consonant. This is a vowel. This is an open syllable, right? And we know the accent's here because it's at the end. So that means this syllable has to have a long vowel in it, right? Because it's open and it doesn't have the accent. And it does, right? This is a comma. It's davar. So open unaccented, long. Closed unaccented, short. I know that's probably really boring to 99% of the people watching. I'm really sorry, but it's very important as we go forward, because if you don't learn this sort of minutia in the beginning, when you see these words change, when you see them take on their different forms, it can be really confusing. Now, ideally, what would happen is that you would learn modern Hebrew, right? You'd learn to speak the language and read it, and like we all do with our native languages. Nobody learns grammar. Nobody teaches a 5-year-old grammar, right? Because they learn to just speak it. They learn in context. They learn, how the sentences go together naturally. And then later they say, hey, look, you already know this language, you know how these words go together, but look at these rules. And this is why those rules make sense. Here we have to do it differently. That would be the way to learn Hebrew, ideally, right, is to learn it sort of as a living language. Unfortunately, most people don't have the opportunity to do that. They can't get around people that speak Hebrew. And so you have to kind of learn it the other way, which is more frustrating, but it's because you have to do this sort of stuff. You have to learn the grammar up front. Okay. But so we've learned about the metheg, which is that vertical line, that vertical accent that tells you to slow down. It's like a yellow light. It tells you to pronounce that vowel as a long vowel, and that's important. And notice why. If you can tell something's a long vowel, that's important for knowing about if it's an open syllable or a closed syllable. Okay. We saw the makef, which is that horizontal line that connects two words together. That's important to know. And then the kametz chatuf, I'm going to run through this really quickly. If you remember, this vowel sound, which I've made bigger here, but let's put it back in our word davar. And what does davar mean? Right, a word or a thing or a matter. Okay, these two vowels right here are called kametz. And I don't know the statistics, but I'm going to say 90% of the time when you see that little capital T underneath of the consonants, it's going to be a kametz. It's going to be a long A sound, ah, right? However, not all the time. So when you see kametz, you want to say ah, so davar. However, there are times when that same sign, that same capital T looking vowel, is actually not an A, a long A. It's actually a short O. So this very popular word, chokhmah, wisdom. Chokhmah. Notice I'm not saying hach or chachma. I'm saying chokhmah. Let's find out why. Change my color. Consonant. Vowel. Consonant. This is a shava, silent shava. It's there closing the syllable. If you don't know what that means, that's cool. Earlier video, I talk about this. So you would put the syllable divider right there. So if you think about this, this is a consonant, vowel, consonant, syllable, right? It's closed. Where's the accent on this word? Well, we don't have one of these little caret things. We don't have a marker over that syllable like we would, like in eretz. So we have to assume that, like most of the other Hebrew words, the accent's here at the end, the ultimate syllable, right? That means that we have an unaccented, closed syllable. Now we all know, obviously, because we're all brilliant Hebrew scholars here, we all know that closed, unaccented syllables need what kind of vowel? Obviously, they need a short vowel. And that's what this is. This is a short O. And it's Oliver. Come here, buddy. Hi, pal. Everybody needs a break. Everybody needs an Oliver break. Can you say hi? Say hi. Say George, George, and all the fiddly bits. No? Okay. You just want to throw your ball? You want to say hi? Oh, you just want to shake the microphone. Okay. Well, I'm going to hand you off to mommy. Hi. Yes. Oh. Could I? Ow. Good grief. Could I trouble you for a cup of coffee? Thank you, sweetheart. My wife's amazing. This is my amazing son. Okay. That was a nice break. So we were talking about closed, unaccented syllables. They need short vowels. So this kametz, or this capital T looking vowel, can either be a long A, or it can be a short O. So that's why this sort of thing is important, right? So sorry. Okay, sorry, I'm looking at one of the comments saying it's kametz katan, like so little comets. Yeah, no, I don't, well, okay. I'll look into that. Oh, I'll have to look into the grammar because the grammar here calls it Kametz Chatuf, and that's how I learned it. But it doesn't matter. What matters is not the Hebrew name for it. But that's thank you, um, um, for that. Whatever it's called, this is a short O, so it's a short vowel. It's a short O. So again, closed unaccented syllable, short, um, long unaccented syllable. It's um, okay. We will. That's got to be a long syllable. Okay, so we're having a bit of a debate maybe in the I don't know, but I'll look into that some more. But I learned it as comments chatu, but it doesn't matter. So short O, that's what that is. Okay, enough about that. We've talked about it, and we can we can move on. So that is I've kind of picked and I picked at a little bit or selected some things from Ross's chapter 4. That's what that was, because we just covered essentially chapter 4. So if you want to do some exercises, please again go buy his book and do the exercises there. We're going to move into chapter 5 quickly because I think we've got time, and then we'll take some questions. So okay, we've looked at I've drawn the word I've written the word davar a bunch of times, and I've always put this little dot in the middle of the dalet. And I don't think we talked about this little dalet. I'll make this red. This little dot in the middle. Why did I put that there? Well, that dot is called dagesh. Dagesh. I'm gonna call it dagesh because that's what everybody's gonna call it in when you if you go to seminary and you learn it or whatever they're gonna call it dagesh. So that's what I'm gonna call it here for continuity's sake. It's dagesh. Anyway, that's a dot that's in the middle of a letter. Okay, there are two types of dageshes. There's a dagesh line and a dagesh forte. Okay. Again, I'm just using. I'm sure that they're pronounced differently in Latin, but or more. But anyway, dagesh line, dagesh forte. This is how they're said in every classroom I've been in. So, all right, dagesh line is like a weak dagesh, and dagesh forte is a strong dagesh. Okay, there are two types of dagesh. They look exactly the same. They're just a dot in the middle of a letter. Okay. Now, what's the difference between them? Well, let's start with the weak dagesh, dagesh line. Our word davar. There are 6 different letters, sorry to count them there, in Hebrew that, as we learned in one of the earlier lessons, there are 6 different letters that will take this dot. They'll appear with the dot and without the dot very regularly, and they are called the Begad Kafat letters. Begad Kafat. That's how. Thank you, sweetheart. In my Skylar fiction mug. Begad Kafat letters. Begad Kafat. So Beit Gimel Dalit Kaf Pe Tav. Begad Kafat. So you can see where I get it. B G D K F T. I don't know why I put an E at the end of that. Begad Kafat. Okay, Begad Kafat. All right. So people are Tzur. Weisblum is if you want to see the other names that they're used, awesome. I'm going to use maybe this is just like American terminology. I don't know, but I'm using what I think probably most people are going to run into. Dagesh Line, Dagesh Forte. But thank you. That's awesome. Okay. So light and heavy, dagesh. So these letters, if you remember, can be pronounced two different ways. Not all of them. Originally, they would have been pronounced two different ways. It's not. It's, okay. So the important ones that are pronounced in two different ways are the bait, the kaf, and the pay. Now, if you go to seminary and I keep saying seminary because that's where I usually know people learn Hebrew. Good Lord, that was hot. They might also pronounce the tav differently, but for our purposes, I'm not going to. So bait can be pronounced b, like a B, or v, like a V. And again, go back to the previous lessons to sort of drill that down. The kaf can be k, like a K, or some people pronounce it with a little more Arabic style, but anyway. And then the pay is p, like a P, or f, like PH. Okay. Now the difference is whether it has that dagesh in the middle. So bait, for example. If there's no dagesh, that means the air can, if you think about it, the air can pass through. It can blow through the middle. So air can blow through the middle of that B, like it does in your mouth. So v, v. So see, the air can pass through my mouth, but b, b, the air doesn't pass through. So if there's a dagesh in the middle, that air tries to pass through and it can't do it. So b, b. However, if you get rid of the dagesh, up, the air can blow right on through. So v, v. The same thing with the other letters. So pay. If there's a dagesh in there, boy, that wind tries to come through, and that's exactly what happens. Just kidding. I try to give these goofy things so you can help you remember them. But that wind tries to pass through the pay. There's a dagesh there. It's blocking it. So p, p. See, your lips, p, they have to stop. However, what happens if you erase that? Oops. You erase that dagesh. Oh man, that air can blow right on through the pay. F, f. See how the air is passing through? It's crazy. Let's do another one. Kaf. Put a dagesh in there. K, k. Like it's stopping. You can feel it stopping in your mouth. That one's not as good, but whatever. However, you take out that dagesh, and you can feel the air passing through, right? Okay. So, with these letters, the Bagad Kafat letters, they can either take a dagesh or not take a dagesh. Now, when do they do that? It's actually pretty simple, generally speaking. If there is a vowel sound that comes before the letter, like directly before it, if you think about how we speak, it's well, yeah, okay. If there's a vowel sound, the word davar, let's look at that. It's actually a really good example. Okay. There's no sound, ostensibly, coming before this dalet, right? No sound. So, you'll put a dagesh in it. However, this bait has a vowel sound coming directly before it. And it causes the air. If you think about how you speak, it's easier to say davar than it is to say dabar. Davar, dabar. Okay? So generally speaking, almost always, I would say, if there is a vowel sound, and there's no other reason for there to be a dagesh, I'll talk about that in just a second. if there's a vowel sound coming directly before one of these begad kafat letters, then you will not see a dagish in the middle. Okay, it will be dagish less, and so the air will pass through. So that's so here. There's no vowel sound before the dalet, so you have a dagish here, but there is a vowel sound before the bait, and so you don't have a dagish. If there's a vowel sound coming directly before it, no dagish. Okay, so that's dagish line or weak dagish. Okay. What about dagish forte or strong dagish? It looks exactly the same, but what it does, because it's strong, it 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 strengthens the letter itself. It makes the letter stronger. If Hebrew letters were weightlifters, they wouldn't want dagish fortes because it doubles their sound. It makes them really strong. So let's take the word diber. Diber. We know, well, we can theorize for a second that this dagish is probably dagish line because it's one of the begad kafat letters. The dalet is one of the begad kafat letters, and there's no vowel sound coming before it. So it makes sense that there would be a dagish line here, right? Easy enough. But wait a second, you might say. Isn't this a vowel sound coming directly before this bait? Yup. That will tell you that this dagish cannot be dagish line, right? It has to be the other kind of dagish, dagish forte. And basically what that dagish is doing it's doubling the bait. There are two baits essentially in there, right? Because that's what dagish forte does. If you put a dagish forte in there, it doubles the letter. Now, what that means, and you don't have to worry about why this particular word there's a reason behind it. You don't have to worry about that right now. But what this does for syllabification, when we think about how the syllables, going back to our word diber. What that means is normally you would syllabify like this, right? But because this dagish is a dagish forte and it's doubling the bait, we have to syllabify like this. That's how we draw it. We draw a line through the center of the dagish at an angle. Of course, I missed the dagish because I'm amazing. You do that. There we go. And what that tells you essentially is that there's a bait, a little bait going this way, and there's a little bait going this way. Okay? So what that means is these are two CVC syllables. So you have consonant, vowel, consonant, because that's a doubled radical, that's a doubled bait. And then you have consonant, vowel, consonant. So these are two CVC syllables. And that's how we draw the dividing line between them. Dagish forte is there, doubling the radical. It's doubling the letter. So you have one going this way and one going that way. One going with the previous syllable and one bait going with the next syllable. Okay? That's going to be important later. Hopefully that makes some semblance of sense. Okay. So dagish line, dagish forte. Let's talk about one more little dot because there's another dot that shows up, and it's called mapik. Mapik. What word do I want to use? What word does he use? Yeah, that's good. Okay. The word melech is another word that you'll see a lot. Melech means king. Melech. The I don't know how. Okay. The way you say her, there's a reason I'm teaching you this right now. It seems really out of order, and I'm really sorry. The way you say her, like her king, you put ah with a little dot in the H on the end. Ah. Okay. So, let me get my eraser. Ah. So, I guess I gotta erase that too. If we wanted to say her king, mal ka, mal ka. That's how we'd syllabify that, mal ka. Notice this is one of the Begad Gefat letters. There's no vowel sound coming before it. This is a closed syllable, so the consonant is ending it, not the vowel. So then you put a dagesh in the kaf. That's a dagesh line, mal ka. But notice here, there's another dot in the hey. That is called mapik. Mapik. And it shows up oftentimes. I'm trying to think of another example when it would show up. But most often it shows up in this third feminine singular possessive suffix, her. So it's her king. Okay. So just know the big thing to remember is sometimes you'll see a dot in the middle of a hey at the end of a word. That's what that is. It's distinguishing that hey, telling you it's there for some specific reason, not just a feminine ending. Okay. My peak. All right. Let's talk. Yeah, well, let's talk about the article and then we'll be done. I think I'm going to talk about the tetragrammaton real quick, but we have a video on that, so I'll do that very quickly. How do you say the in Hebrew? Well, if we have our word davar, this means a thing, a word, a matter. If you want to say the word, you need to put the sound ha before it. And this is how we draw it. Hey, pathak, doubling dot. Now, I know it's patach, but nobody's going to pronounce it that way, at least in most of the courses, the classrooms that I've been in. So they don't call this patach, they call that pathak. Sorry. So hey, pathak, doubling dot. And what that means is hey, pathak, dagesh forte. The dagesh forte is doubling. That's part of the way you say the. You have hey, pathak, dagesh forte. Hey, pathak, dagesh forte. Okay? That's what you add to the front of a word. So, we're going to do that here. Hey, pathak. And we make that a strong dagesh, a dagesh forte. So then when we syllabify this, it would look like that. One dalet going that way, and one dalet going that way. So you have a CVC, a CV, and a CVC. The accent's here. Let's see if it works based on our rules, right? If the accent is on this syllable, we don't care. That can be whatever. It doesn't matter. Short vowel. All right, we have a CV here in this syllable, which means if it's and it's not accented. So if it's an open CV, open unaccented syllable, then it has to be a long vowel. And lo and behold, it is. Ah, hadavar. Then we have a CVC syllable here. So the hey, the patach, pathak, and then another dalet, another consonant here, closing that syllable. So that's CVC. It has to be a short vowel because it's closed and unaccented, and it is. Patach, pathak is indeed short. So it works. You see how these rules, even though they might seem a little annoying to learn right now, it's important to kind of get them down. So the way that you say the word the, you write the word the, is you put a hey, a pathak, and a dagesh forte in the first letter of the word that you're trying to make definite, trying to say the word the. Okay, so this has some ramifications with certain letters. Okay, so melech, our word for king, which has the accent there. If you put hey, pathak, dagesh forte, no problem, right? Ha melech. See, let's syllabify it just like that. A mem going this way and a mem going that way. No problem, right? How about what is oh, he doesn't deal with that right now. You know what? If he doesn't deal with it right now, I'm not going to deal with it right now. I'll give you a little hint. Let's say Eved, which is not Ebed, right? You've probably heard that if you've heard about the slavery debate in the Hebrew Bible. You'll hear people call that or say that word Ebed, Abed, whatever. No, it's Eved, and now you know why, right? Eved, the accent is here. All right, well, let's try. Hey, pathak, and then we try to put a doubling dot in the ayin, and it rejects it. Ayin doesn't like. Oh man, we try to put it in again. Oh, it rejected it. There are certain letters that don't like doubling dots. You can't double them. And the reason you can't double them is because of the type of letter it is. These guttural letters. So, right? You can't double the sound. How would you do that? I don't know. Anyway, so chait won't take a doubling dot. You can't double it. So there are certain consequences for that, and we'll talk about that in a later lesson. So the big thing just to remember here is that if you want to say, erase this. If you want to say the, you want to make a word definite, give it the definite article, you put ha, hey, pathak, and a dagesh forte or a doubling dot in the first letter of the word. Pretty simple. Okay. We've covered a lot today. I'm going to talk about one more thing. And again, we have a video on this, and that is this word. Okay. I'll just do this very briefly, but I need you to know it because you're going to hear me when people pronounce things in the Hebrew Bible. Oftentimes they will say, anyway, I'll just explain it. Okay. This is called the Tetragrammaton, or the name of the Lord in the Hebrew Bible in the Old Testament. And there's some debate about how it was actually pronounced. But it has its own set of vowels. But as you may or may not know, it is inappropriate in many cultures, particularly for the Masoretes, the people that put the vowel points, copied the Old Testament text. You couldn't pronounce the Lord's name, right? That was considered inappropriate. So instead of saying this word, what they did is they pronounced this word, Adonai, Adonai, Lord, my lords, but so Adonai. So just like we would do, instead of saying that word in English, we will also say the Lord said. Same word. Adonai means Lord. Adon means Lord. That doesn't matter. Okay. So, but what they didn't want to do is actually change. So if they were copying out the Hebrew text and this word came up, what they didn't want to do was take those consonants out and put these consonants in. They didn't want to do that. What they did is they left these 4 letters in the text, right? So you had the text and like this. Okay. And in the margin, they wrote those letters. And then, so if you, let me put the word back up here so you can see it. Sorry. Those are the vowels. Okay. Hey, we got a super chat. Enkidu5 for $5. Thank you very much. How am I reading this? I can't remember how we read it on this channel. Oh yeah. So I'll do a tried and true. Enkidu5. If you want a different voice, let me know. Enkidu5 for $5. All right, people. I tip your teacher. Okay. I mean, I taught high school science for 15 years, so you know, I always got tipped. Okay, I'm here to help. So what they did to tell the reader, hey, don't pronounce these consonants this way, pronounce them this other way. What they did is they put the vowels from this word down here on this word. Now, you'll see why later. I don't want to bother you with it. Instead of writing this particular vowel form, they just wrote this instead, which is perfectly fine. And they all, after a while, or in many places, didn't actually write the O sound up top. But what that led to was people trying to pronounce this form. So I'm going to put the O back up there for just a second. They tried to pronounce this form right here, which is not a real word, right? What you're supposed to do when you're reading along and you get to this word, you're supposed to go, that's not a word, huh? And you're supposed to look out in the margin and see which consonants am I supposed to read with these vowels. Does that make sense? So these are the vowels for Adonai. So they would see these vowels with these consonants and go, what the heck? That's not a word. And they'd look out in the margin and go, oh, these vowels go with these consonants. That's what I'm supposed to read and pronounce that. But they didn't. So what they started trying to pronounce was this word. And if you remember, and in German, that's a J. So you can see Ye, Ho, Va. Jehovah. So Jehovah's, I mean, I don't want to say it's not really a word because it is a word now. People use it all the time. But the word Jehovah comes from misunderstanding what this form actually is. It's the vowels for Adonai, A-O-A, A-O-A, going with the 4 letters of the Lord's name, the Tetragrammaton, that weren't supposed to be pronounced. Okay? So, again, we have a video on this. I can't remember where, but it's it was earlier on that we did it. But the point is that when you read through the Hebrew and you see this in the text, you should, most people that I run into will pronounce this either Adonai, or they will pronounce it Hashem, which is the name, Hashem. So you'll hear me when I do that. So and it starts to come up in quite a bit in Genesis 2. So Adonai Elohim, Adonai Elohim. That's why we're pronouncing that. Okay. That is the end of chapter 5 in Ross's grammar. And again, I would highly recommend that you purchase it. But that's, I'm going to leave this whiteboard up for a minute in case people have questions. But what questions do you have? I know we've covered a lot. While you're thinking of them, I'm going to go quickly back over what we've covered. We've talked about what accents are, and we've talked about how accents are important to know, not just for correct pronunciation as you're reading through the biblical text, but also for understanding why certain vowels change. And again, this is going to become more and more important as we go further into Hebrew. Again, if you understand those basic rules about open syllables and closed syllables and short vowels and long vowels and that sort of thing, it will make it so much easier to understand why the words change as the vowels change as they do. Megan is texting me. Okay, so here are some of the questions that came through. And again, if you have them, feel free to put them up. Okay. I recently saw a lecture that says the Hebrew alphabet replaced the cuneiform writings and hieroglyphics to become our modern writing. What do you think of this? Well, the alphabetic script started to, it's actually kind of a complicated thing, but you start to see like Phoenician and Ugaritic and of course later Hebrew and Aramaic. You see alphabetic scripts begin to take over in the first millennium. Of course, alphabetic was present in Phoenician, Ugaritic. Ugaritic's what, 13th century BCE. So Ugaritic is it's a cuneiform script, but it's not syllabic and logographic like Sumerian and Akkadian were, but it is alphabetic. So then Hebrew and then later Aramaic kind of take over. Aramaic takes over as the lingua franca, the common tongue in the first millennium BCE. How it transitions into modern languages, I wouldn't be able to comment on that right now. But yeah, I don't know if that helped. So zur Weisblum, the Hebrew writing is actually an Aramaic writing. The original Hebrew wasn't in for 2,500 years. Yeah, so what I think he's referring to is this type of block script here is Aramaic. If you think about how people talk about Paleo Hebrew, you have letters that are formed like this. Probably going the wrong direction on that. Oops. I meant to hit single backspace. But that Paleo Hebrew, right, Paleo Hebrew is like the older looking script, and you'll see that in, so like older inscriptions, the Gezer count. Actually, hold on. So Ahituv's work on inscriptions will show you. Just trying to find a good example here. The Gezer calendar is usually really good. Okay, and then this is okay. So can you see that? That's Paleo. Oh, there you go. That's nice and clear. Paleo Hebrew script. So that's kind of what it looked like before it was this block Aramaic style script. So I think that's probably what he's referring to. But yes. Okay, Chris Barker says, Digital Hammurabi, did not the Lord tell Moses to teach the children of Israel to say the name of the Lord? Yeah, it's from an interpretive standpoint, that's not really what we're talking about here. I guess what I'm saying is that the conclusions that people ultimately arrived at, I'm trying to explain why. I mean, we could talk about interpretive issues and exegetically how we should understand that. And that's a fair point. But that's not what I'm trying to say is that oftentimes when you hear people read through the biblical text, which is what you're probably going to experience, you're going to hear people, instead of pronouncing the Lord's name, they're going to pronounce Hashem or Adonai, right? So that's what I was getting at. What else we got? Iradel. Don't they shorten it again to just the double yod and still pronounce it Adonai? Like in modern Hebrew? I don't know. Oh, I'm sorry. You're talking about the Tetragrammaton. I don't remember. You'll often see the Tetragrammaton. Of course, it's not the Tetragrammaton, and it's like this, but you'll see Yah on the end of or Yahoo. Well, that's terrible. So Yeshayahu or Yirmiyahu, but that ending is a theophoric element. It's the shortened form of the name. So anyway, hey, Science Side Up is with us. How you doing, Maddie? If you guys haven't subscribed to Science Side Up, go subscribe. Fantastic channel. Talks a lot about science, obviously, and she's really funny. And she was on Skylar's show with us a week ago, maybe. But she needs some more subs. So I'm even good with you leaving right now to do it. But I think you can probably open another tab or something, so you don't have to actually leave. But yeah, she's a good channel. Okay. John Peak, are there any other words that we will avoid, or is the Lord's name the only word that can necessarily be considered capable of defilement? Defilement. I don't know if many or most people would consider it a defiling thing. There are words that you'll see. Yeah, I don't. There are sort of euphemisms that you see in the Hebrew Bible, not necessarily that they're not pronouncing them, but they're just using different words. Yeah, I don't know really I don't know that I can answer that right now. Are there any questions about the grammar? Because these are all great questions. No question about that. But if there are any grammatical questions, stuff that we covered either here in the earlier lessons, Chris Barker says, I've heard that the third letter is really pronounced Vav. Yeah, so you'll hear people. So this letter, for example, people will sometimes pronounce that Tau with a W, like T-A-W. I pronounce it more as modern Hebrew Tav. So the same with this letter. So people pronounce that Wow. I pronounce it Vav because it's more. I learned modern Hebrew before I learned biblical Hebrew. So that's sort of why I have that coloring, as you could say. Yeah, so Megan just texted me that. Okay. Guys, this has been good. We've gone about an hour and a half. And again, I'll stay here for another couple of minutes just to make sure other people don't have questions about the grammar itself. And I'll give you sort of a preview of what's going to be coming up in the next lesson. This is actually much easier for me. I know that it's longer and it's more classroom-like, and it's not quite as it's not as easy to review and get the grammar out of it as like a polished video. I apologize for that, but this is so much easier for me, which means that I'll probably come out with the lessons faster because I can just sort of work my way through it. So in chapter 6 of Ross's book, we're going to go through. It's the last lesson, and yeah, and actually, that won't take very long at all. It's that the definite article. But after that, we're going to get into nouns. So, this is I think we're at a good place here. Let me switch back to the main screen. Okay, so I feel like we're at a good place. I'll stop it here. Any questions that you guys do have, if you're watching this for the first time later, or you've been in a live chat and you're like, oh goodness, I wanted to ask about the definite article. I wanted to ask this question. That's absolutely fine. Go ahead and email me, digitalhammurabi@gmail.com, and either I will answer it then, or if I think it's something that everybody needs to see, then I might wait until the next stream. Sagixp, how do you pronounce that? Sagixp. He says that Hebrew is a difficult language. No question, but I think that's what he's saying. Yeah, but we can do it. It's manageable. Okay, so I will probably close it down here. Oh, one more question, it looks like. Oh, yeah. So I missed the beginning of the class. What was the reason for selecting the Ross grammar as opposed to Hackett or Lambden? Honestly, it's personal preference. It's the one that I used to teach biblical Hebrew with. But there are a lot of Hebrew grammars out there. So this is just the one that I'm familiar with. It's what I put. It's what I put the. Sorry, somebody's saying turn up the sound, or pump up the volume is the other way maybe to say that. I don't know if that's better. Test 1 2. Is that better? So what was I saying? Oh yeah. So you can definitely tons of different grammars that you can get. These are just the ones that I used. Sorry if everybody turned up their volume for the stream and then suddenly had to turn it down because I increased the volume on my end. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I appreciate all the questions, and yeah, we'll get into the next lesson and get into nouns and start to really move forward with the grammar. So, okay, until next time, resist poor scholarship. Always ask, how do you know that? Bye, guys.